Baisle, let's go for it. We're back this week, l'chvoid, my 40th birthday, which is going to be mitzvah this upcoming Shabbos. We decided to step a little bit out of my nigla comfort zone, get involved in a shtickle nister, and here we come, Ayin Hara. Let's do it. Okay, so Ayin Hara. Is Ayin Hara real? Is it superstition? Is it mishigas? Is it mitzias? What's the story with Ayin Hara? Is it a real deal? Chamsas, red strings. What do we do? What do we don't do? Where does it affect? Is that halacha? Is that ashkafa? What's the deal? What's going on? Let's get some clarity. Okay, here we go. So, in Parshas Lech Lecha last week, we see that, based on how Rashi explains, that Sarah gave Hagar an Ayin Hara and caused Hagar to miscarry. So she miscarried her first, before Yishmael, her first pregnancy, she miscarried because of Ayin Hara caused by Sarah Imenus. It seems that Ayin Hara is real. There's a medrash that Avram, after the Akedah, sent Yitzchak away. It says he sent him away by night. Avram didn't come back from the Akedah with Yitzchak, rather he sent them away, go learn whatever, because he didn't want the Ayin Hara to affect Yitzchak. So we see that Avram Avinu was concerned with the Ayin Hara. Yaakov tells his sons, when you go down to Mitzrayim, don't all go together like this big group of macho, strong, good-looking sons, 10 sons. Rather, you go in from different gates into Mitzrayim, from different corners. You shouldn't look like one big group. You shouldn't cause a Ayin Hara. When Parai asks Yaakov, how old are you? Yaakov, what does he answer? Listen, I'm not as old as my father. My years are very hard and tough. I had a difficult life. He's deflecting the question. He's not coming and saying how old he is. Why? One of the pshatim that he's not answering the question directly. He's deflecting it to prevent Ayin Hara. He's not going to say how old he is. He's a very old man. It's avoiding Ayin Hara. Yaakov Avinu gives his grandchildren a bracha. A bracha that we're all very familiar. V'yidgu l'raiv b'kerev haaretz. V'yidgu l'raiv. What does that mean? You should be like fish. So one of the classical pshatim of fish is that you should multiply like fish. You should have many children. But another pshat in fish is, we know that fish, the Ayin Hara is in shayot on the fish. They're covered by water and protected from Ayin Hara. In fact, we know the fish didn't die by the mabel. They're protected from Ayin Hara. So Yaakov Avinu benches his grandchildren. You should be protected against Ayin Hara. There's a medrash that says the luchas rishonos. Why do they have to be broken? Because there's the Ayin Hara on the luchas rishonos. You know, they came with Kodesh of Rakim, the great Maimon of Har Sinai they were given, with such a azay spitz that they were given, they were broken, they had to be broken because of Ayin Hara. The Gemara asks, what happened to Chananya, Mishael, and Azariah? After they were thrown into Kivshin Eish and they died, and they said, Chas v'shalom, and they survived Al Kiddush Hashem, we don't hear them. They're not mentioned anymore. What happened to them? So there's two pshatim in the Gemara, but one of the pshatim in the Gemara is that they actually, shortly after this, they died. Why Ayin Hara? Everybody said, Chananya, Mishael, Azariah, those are the guys. They were thrown in the Kivshin Eish and survived. That caused the Ayin Hara upon them, and they died soon after. Bilam had a koyach to curse the Yidden. Some explain what was this koyach that Bilam had. That was the koyach of Ayin Hara. So we see it's clearly found all over Torah. In the Torah Kedosha, we find Ayin Hara is a real deal. It's legit, and it comes in many places. Okay, that's Bizman Tanakh. What about Bizman Tanoim v'Amoraim? Do they still have Ayin Hara around? So, there's a Gemara in Bava Metzia, Kuf Zayin Amin Aleph, where Rav, it says he went to a basic forest. I don't know exactly how he's able to figure it out in the basic forest, but he figured out how everybody died, and he said 99 out of 100 of the people here died due to Ayin Hara. That's pretty astounding. 99% of the people that were nifter, that died, was due to Ayin Hara. So you can see, Bisman Marayim, or maybe I guess these people might have died before Rav, maybe Bisman Tanayim, the people died due to Ayin Hara. The Gemara, this is a Gemara of Yochanan. He was very good looking. He stayed outside the mikveh that the women, after they were toivel, they would go see him and see his good looks and have beautiful children because of this. And the Gemara asked, Rabbi Yochanan, aren't you worried about Ayin Hara? You're going showing off your good looks? What about Ayin Hara? There's going to be Ayin Hara. Zat the Gemara of Yochanan says he wasn't concerned about Ayin Hara. Why? Because Rabbi Yochanan was Mizer Shel Yosef Atzadik. And apparently the children of Yosef Atzadik are, Ayin Hara isn't showed up to him. Ayin Hara does not affect the children of Yosef Atzadik. So what is the answer of Yochanan? Really, there's a Ayin Hara, a concept of Ayin Hara. Really, most people should be concerned about Ayin Hara. Me personally, I don't have to worry because I'm from Zera Yosef. And that's the answer of Rabbi Yochanan. But we see it certainly exists. The Gemara in Pesachim, Nun Beis, says don't choose a profession that looks like it's not a lot of work and it makes a lot of money. Yeah, don't choose a profession like that. Why? You're going to cause for yourself Ayin Hara. The Gemara in Baba Basra Samach says that you could force your neighbor to build a fence in between you in order that there won't be hezek re'iyah from one neighbor to the other neighbor. And many explain that what's the hezek? Exactly. You know, look at my tomatoes. You know, my tomatoes aren't going to be dressed. What's the issue? The issue is you're going to cause hezek re'iyah via creating an Ayin Hara. And therefore, correct, it's coming up, that halacha. Very good. It's Chayshim Mishpat. We'll get there soon. So, but we have this Gemara source. You can force your neighbor to build a fence with you in order to prevent Ayin Hara. There's Gemara in Bava Metzia Lamed Amud Aleph. If you find a lost object, you're supposed to, and it's the type of thing that needs to be shaked out so it doesn't get like all old and moldy or old and dusty or whatever it is. To keep it in good shape, you're supposed to shake it out every, let's say, once in 30 days or whatever it is. But don't shake it out in front of people. Why shouldn't you shake it out in front of people? So there's two pshatim in the Gemara. One is that you won't get stolen. If you shake out something very nice, you won't have other people show it. But the other pshat in the Gemara is, if other people go and they see, whoa, what a beautiful blanket you have there. What a beautiful scarf. Oh, it's Ferragamo? Well, I don't know, does Ferragamo make scarves? Maybe not. I don't know. But whatever it is, what a beautiful Gucci scarf. And they look at it, and it's going to cause the Ayin Hara. Maybe the thing's going to get burnt up. And therefore, you don't do it in front of people. The Gemara in Baba Basra says that having a girl first is a simin labanim. If your first child is a girl, it's a simin to be able to have lots of boys. Well, what shaykhs? You have a girl first, therefore you're going to have lots of boys? So one of the pshatim is, because you're not going to have Ayin Hara. A lot of people want a boy first. So if you have a girl first, that's not going to be Ayin Hara, and therefore you'll be able to have lots of boys. Sorry for my women listeners if they got offended by that.
The Metzias is not like that.
I don't know what the Metzias is, but that's what the simon is. Okay, I haven't run a study. Weiter. The Gemara in Bracha says, Ein ha-bracha matzoi el b'davar shesamim min ayin. Bracha is found by something that's concealed from the eye. That there's not going to be Ayin Hara on it. That's how you get bracha. Okay. So we see it is all over the Gemara. So it's all over Tanakh, Ayin Hara. And now I gave you many examples of Gemaras where we see it's all over the Gemaras. Does this concept of Ayin Hara make it into our modern day halacha? Does it make it in? So let's start investigating the Arba Chalakim of Shulchan Aruch, and let's see if it makes it in. So let's get started with the Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim. Says you cannot give two brothers, or you cannot give a father and son, back-to-back aliyahs. Why not? Ayin Hara. Look, the Schwartzes, the Goldsteins, whatever they are, they're taking over this place. They get every aliyah. They're getting back-to-back aliyahs. No, you can't have that because of Ayin Hara. Now, what if they're not makbid? They say, listen, we're not worried about Ayin Hara. Could you give them aliyahs anyways? Zak the Mishnah Berurah, I don't care if they're not makbid, you can't give it to them. Happens to be the Aruch HaShulchan says, if they're not makbid, you could give it to them. How do we paskin? We pass like the Mishnah Berurah. Even if they say they're not makbid, you cannot give two brothers or a father and son back-to-back aliyahs. What about a grandfather-grandson? Could you give aliyahs to grandfather-grandson back-to-back? So, l'chatchila, we say that you shouldn't do that, but b'makam sarach, which sometimes will happen by a simcha, you'll have it. But b'makam sarach, they need to give the grandfather and then the grandson, l'maisa, you could do it. What about giving brothers or father-son, hagba galila? So, in a place where they call the magbia and the goylel by name, some places they call them up, Yamoid, whatever the name is, for hagba and galila. So, in such a place, you for sure cannot give two brothers or father, son, hagba and galila. In a place where they don't call them up by name, which I think most places don't call them up by name, so it's totally a minhag. The minhag in most places is you still do not give to two brothers or father son. There's some places that do give it, but the general minhag is still no, you do not give two brothers or father son hagba galila. What happens? Let's get back to Elias. So we called Ruvain, and then the Gabbai mistakenly calls his brother Shimon up for Aliyah. What do you do now? So the halacha is that Shimon should not go up. Don't go up. And then they'll just, the Gabbai should, without a name, call up somebody next to the bima, come up and take the Aliyah. And that's what should be done. But what happens if Shimon already got up for the Aliyah, the brother already got up for the Aliyah, he's at the bima already? Then what we do is we send Ruvain, the brother that already got the Aliyah. Usually when you get Aliyah, you stay up there for the next Aliyah. But then we send him down. Go back to your seat, and we let the second brother get Aliyah. And it's better not to make a whole big spiel about it, but to try to do it on a quiet way to minimize any Ayin Hara that it may cause. Okay, so that is our source in Orach Chaim. Now we're going to get to Choshen Mishpat, Shin Ayin Ches Hey. A person can't, as this is the one that Yaakov referred to previously, a person can't look at someone's field and see how it's growing. And the Be'er Goyla explains, why not? Why can't, what's the big deal? Why can't I look how my friend's field is growing? It's not the Be'er Goyla, because it will cause Ayin Hara, and that will be the Hezek Re'iyah, that it causes Ayin Hara, and you can't look at your friend's field growing. I have a shayla that I was wondering. Can we walk around the neighborhood and check out that mansion that guy is building, 2 blocks away around the corner, the guy is building that ridiculously huge house. And, on our Shabbos walk, could we walk by to see how it's coming along, that project? L'chayra, sounds like a pretty big problem, right? If tomatoes are a problem, l'chayra, a mansion's a problem, right? Sounds like. I'll say one thing's for sure. If you are jealous of that guy who's building the mansion, or you're the guy saying, what does he need 10 bedrooms for 3 kids for, huh? He has 3 kids. What does he need 10 bedrooms? If that's your mindset, then I think it's awesome for you to walk by and look at that mansion. If you're be'emes happy for the guy, tzarchin. But if you are jealous of the guy and you're saying, what does he need it for? It's awesome for you to walk by and check how his building's going. I don't know if this is mamish halacha l'maisa because I didn't see anybody else discuss it and make the sushtel from tomatoes to mansions. But I'm just saying, in Svar, l'chayra, that's how it would play out. Fine. That's all right, l'chayra. Let's go on to Even Ezer. So Even Ezer, Samach Bey Gimel, the Ramah says, we don't make 2 chuppos together. We don't have a double wedding. We don't do two chuppahs together. Why not? Because Ayin Hara. Now, actually, I know of some two people that are Gerim, and they had a double chasana. So it's against this Ramah. But then I remember that they do the Sephardim minhagim, these two Gerim. So therefore, it wasn't a problem because is a din Ramah. It's Ayin Hara, not to have a double chuppah. But Maisa, we don't do double chuppah and we don't do double shav brachas. Oh, it'd be so cute if we do a double shav. No, not so cute. We don't do double chuppahs. We don't do double shav brachas. It's Ayin Hara. Okay, weiter. So that is Even Ezer. So we have Or Chaim, we have Choshen Mishpat, and we have Even Ezer. In Yardea, Kuf Pei Hey, it's discussing the sugya of Amsala. A woman, usually there's a concept, somebody that says that they're a nida, we treat them as a nida, the woman as a nida, just based on her word alone. But if she has a good excuse as to why she claimed to be a nida, even though she wasn't, we will accept the reasonable excuse. So the Shulchan Aruch discusses a case of a woman that acted as if she was a nida, and she later explained, I'm not a nida, but the reason that I did it is I didn't want to Ayin Hara. She had multiple miscarriages beforehand, and she didn't want to have another miscarriage, and therefore she didn't want people to assume that she was pregnant. So she acted as if she was a nida, not to give off the impression that she was pregnant, and that was accepted as a amsala, reasonable explanation as to why she, so to speak, acted as a nida, and is legitimate because it's legitimate to pretend, for this woman to pretend that she wasn't pregnant to avoid Ayin Hara. So now we see in Arba Chalkei Shulchan Aruch, we see the concept of Ayin Hara. So we see Ayin Hara in Tanakh. We see Ayin Hara in Tanoim v'Amoraim. And we see Ayin Hara in Arba Chalkei Shulchan Aruch. Now, let's go through a couple more examples that we see come up halacha l'maisa in regards to Ayin Hara. The Magen Avram says that you should not count people. Don't count Jews because of Ayin Hara. Klal Yisrael, we see when it came to, you want to count Klal Yisrael, how do you do it? Machzis a shekel. That's a way to count Klal Yisrael. But you don't count individuals. Now, sometimes we need to count people. What's the most common case where a firm Jew needs to count people? A minyan. Do we have a minyan or do we not have a minyan? So, the minhag is, we count with a 10-word pasuk. Now, the poskim, there's two pasukim that I saw brought in the poskim. One is less common, one is more common. The pasuk, the first one I saw, V'ani b'roiv chazdecha. So the pasuk that starts, V'ani b'roiv chazdecha, that's 10 words in that pasuk. Fine? Or the other one that people know much more is Ashia Samecha Varachas Nachasecha Orim V'nasim Ad Oilam. As the second pasuk, there's 10 words in the pasuk, so you use those words of the pasuk to count. Now I have a friend who's a shtickle geschmackster or lights, depending on how you want to look at it, but he's a geschmack guy. And when he needs to count, he usually goes like this: Dam, Svardea, Kinim, Ariv, Dever, Vishchin. Yeah, and that's how he likes to count for a minyan. Is that a good thing? Is that cool or not cool to count using the Asar Makis to count for a minyan? So the Maisa, it's depends on what are you doing when you say if it's using a pasuk to count, so he's using the makis to count. That's fine. But if what you're doing is you're giving a bracha, if it's the element of giving a bracha, if you're giving a bracha, the dam sverdei kingdom is not a bracha. The Chayr Pashtus is using a pasuk to count, and Pashtus, what he's doing is okay. Okay, let's keep on going. So, can you count Aleph, B? I've seen people do this. Aleph, B is Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. So the Kaf HaChaim says no. That's just counting with a different language, so to speak, or a different system of counting. But that would not be cool. Can you? Everybody put out your hand. And could you count everybody? Raise your hand if you want to dive in the minyan. And then can you count everybody's hand? So, we'll see that there's actually a machlokes on this. So the Kaf HaChaim says you're allowed to do it. The Chassam Sofer says no, you're not allowed to do it. Now, I think the Pash just is like the Kaf HaChaim that you could. Why? Because we see in the Beis HaMikdash, wasn't exactly counting, but there was like a somewhat counting system to decide who gets to do the avodah. It was like more like 21st fingers type thing, but they went around and they counted the fingers in the system. So if they counted the fingers in the Beis HaMikdash, l'cha'ayra, you should be able to count the hands for a minyan. Yes, it's possible to make a pircha, and there's all sorts of things. They also did karbanos on Shabbos in the Mikdash, so you could. It's not an absolute proof, but the pashtus is, if there was an issue, they could have done other eitzos. L'chayra, there's no issue in counting the hands. It's not a mochraya, but I think it's the pashtus is like the Kaf HaChaim that it should be allowed. What do you think about counting hats, yarmulkes, talesim, something of that sort? Does that work? Could you do that? So I would say l'chayra, yes. Meaning, if you see hands as a whole machlokes, surely your hat is further removed from you than your hand. And if you could probably count hands, then I would say kal v'chomer l'chayra you could count hats. I can't say it's mukhrach, but I would say that's the pashtus. Could you count in your head? You're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but no words come out of your mouth. You're in your head, you're counting. So Magen Avraham says yes, you're allowed to. However, the Kaf HaChaim, he qualifies, don't do it like this in your head. Don't use your finger to count in your head. Some people need their finger to help them count in their head. I'm not talking about fingers like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm talking about the pointing finger when you're going around the room. So the Kaf HaChaim says don't do that. That's already counting with your finger. So, but if you count in your head without your finger, you're allowed to. What do you think about the head motion? All right, the recording stops, so we're going to continue now. Let's continue on. I'm going to do it again, the share for those listening virtually. Okay, so can you count people? But everybody raise your hand if you're in for the minyan, and people raise their hands and you count their hands. Is one allowed to do that? So the Kaf HaChaim says, yes, you could do that. The Chassam Sofer says, no, you can't. I think the Pashtus is like the Kaf HaChaim, that you should be allowed to do that, because Rabbi say, what did the Kohanim do in the Mikdash? He used to say, put out your fingers. I mean, it was really like 21st fingers But to figure out who did the avodah, they would count the fingers. They would count the hand that each person's sticking out, and therefore l'chayra you could do it. That's not mokhrach, because there's a lot of things they did in the Beis HaMikdash. They did karbanos on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash. So there's a lot of things that went on. It doesn't prove you could do it, but bepashtus from the fact that they did in the Beis HaMikdash, bepashtus that would be allowed. Now, can you count in your head, without saying 1, 2, 3, 4, but, and you count in your head the numbers. So the Mesa, the Magen Avraham says, yes, you could. But the Kaf HaChaim warns, when you count in your head, don't use your finger, don't use your fingers to help you count in your head. Okay, so more inyanim, more ideas why we have these inyanim that we're worried about Ayin Hara. So as the Shari Ephraim says, the minig is Bayisker Kinder Arois. Bayisker, we say those that their parents are alive, they go out not to create a Ayin Hara. The Piskei Tshuva Yerodea Kuftes Zayin. So you don't give two kids in the same name, in the same family, the same name, cause of Ayin Hara. Rabbi Yehuda Chosid famously says, a father-in-law shouldn't take a son-in-law with his name, or a mother-in-law shouldn't get a daughter-in-law with her name. We shouldn't have the same name, father-in-law, son-in-law, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. It creates an Ayin Hara. Now, do we keep this? Do we not keep this? So it used to be that the Hasidim really were makbid on this, the Litvaks really weren't makbid on this, but Rabbi say, I think it's spread, and I think a lot of the Litvish world is makbid on this as well, even though maybe they didn't used to, but now they are makbid, but there's a lot of great people that were makbid. Reb Moshe Feinstein had two son-in-laws whose name was Moshe. Reb Chaim Pitchlis Scheinberg, he had a son-in-law named Chaim. Not everyone was makbid on it, but I think nowadays the minhag has mostly become to be makbid on it. Next thing, Ashkenazim don't name their baby the same name as one of their parents or grandparents that are alive. It's an Ayin Hara. Sephardim definitely do name after their living grandparents, but Ashkenazim feel that it's Ayin Hara to name after the living grandparents. Someone who has both parents alive does not say Kaddish Yosem at the end of davening. However, the interesting thing the Mishnah says is if the parents are Meichel, then they could say it. Tzarchim, why that is. But Lamaisa, without the Mechila, you do not say Kaddish Yosem. Rabbi Vadia says one of the reasons at least that we break the glass by the chuppah is Keneged Ayin Hara. The Den Betziner says that, let's say you have the mother of the cow is pregnant. If the mother of the cow is pregnant, she does not walk her daughter down the aisle. We don't have a pregnant lady walking down the aisle. Everybody's going to be like, whoa, look at this. The mother of the cow is pregnant. We don't want that. So the Betziner, Rav, she doesn't walk down the aisle. I think nowadays the minhag is when this happens, we do ever walk down the aisle. I think it might be that nowadays it's not as woe as it used to be. I think it's more common than it once was. And Lamais, I think people do it. Okay. Another thing, they say, sitting in a wheelchair or using crutches when you don't need the wheelchair and you don't need the crutches, it's an Ayin Hara. Now, where does it say it? I don't know. Don't know where it says it. But I know that the Metziner held, if the Babas say it, if the Saftas say it, if the Grandmas say it, if that's what they say, then we're machmir for it. And I think there's one other thing that the Babis say, you don't do it. So I guess we don't do it, even though I don't know an actual makar. Okay, now I want to know, Lamaisa, Tachlis, how does Ayin Hara work? What's the mechanism? Why? Why you think bad thoughts? This person now all of a sudden something bad's going to happen? What sheikhs? What's the connection? So Rabbeinu Bechaya, Rav Dessler goes this way, says like this. When somebody thinks, why does this person why does he deserve such an item? I'm so jealous of him, he has this beautiful house. That now puts it under the focus of Shemayim. And in Shemayim, they'll start judging this person. Does he really deserve it? And that judgment's going to be with Midas Hadin, not with Midas HaChesed, Midas HaRachamim. And now that the person is now put under the spotlight of Midas Hadin, he's likely to have a much harsher judgment. And Zak, the Rabbeinu Bechaya, Rav Dessler, that's how it works. It's putting somebody under the spotlight, transferring them from Midas HaChesed to Midas Hadin, and in Mela, some harsh things will likely happen to that person who receives such an Ayin Hara. There's another approach for Ayin Hara. This is the approach of the Rabbeinu Yoina, the Abarbanel, the Malbim. They say that Ayin Hara is some form of metaphysical force. It's something built into the teva of the world. Yes, there are things we don't understand. You know what? Before we understood radio waves and sound waves, before we understood how remote control worked, nobody realized that there was a koyach there. We never tapped into that koyach. We never understood it. But once they invented it, then we understood it. So there's some form of koyach like this. And the eyes actually have a teva dika physical effect on the one that you were staring at. You ever get the feeling, somebody's staring at me? I don't know how to explain that exactly, but you can kind of feel that somebody might be staring at you and cause you to turn around. There's some koyach, there's some feeling, there's something going on. The Malbim says that there was in Russia, the good old Rishayim of Russia, the evil people, so there was somebody who was on death row. So what they did was they starved the person to death. And they took a piece of bread, or a loaf of bread, and they put the loaf of bread right out of the person's reach. And they made the person who was starving to death, Nebuch, stare at this bread. They say that after the person died of starvation, they cut open the bread, and it was filled with poison. However it is that they checked that it's filled with poison. The Ayin Hara, scientifically according to them, caused the bread to be filled with poison. Some form of physical effect from consciousness. And the truth is, they do say or it's controversial at least, in quantum physics. There's such a concept that the consciousness of man or being tested will create movement in the electrons, and the neutrons will move differently if somebody is focusing upon it. How exactly that works beats me. I can't explain it, but there are some that claim there is a physical effect. And within this understanding, that person steering at your item, being jealous of him, actually causes negativity, causes destruction. And by the way, this seems to be the parashas when you look at all those Gemaras, the Tanoim, they saw somebody doing something bad, v'nasam b'yeinav, and they put their eyes upon them, and they turn them into a gal shal atzamas, a pile of bones. Their look, their fierce look, so to speak, had an actual effect in the physical world, and turned them into this pile of bones. And that is that's the other mahalach of how Ayin Hara actually works. Now, however it is that Ayin Hara works, what's actually causing the Ayin Hara? What type of mindset, what types of view, what types of actions? So, the Yerushalmi, when explaining how Rav said that 99 out of 100 people in this basic verse died of Ayin Hara, the Yerushalmi explains, you know why? Because Rav was in Bavel. And in Bavel, there were a bunch of show-offs. They were wealthy in Bavel. There were a bunch of show-offs. And since they were showing off, that's why 99 out of 100 died from Ayin Hara. So that seems to be showing off as a way. The Gemara in Eruvin discusses somebody who acquires the Nichsei Ager, meaning gets a massive windfall. There's a guy, he's worth $10 million, he's a Gary, he has no relatives, you're walking down the street, he drops dead, you go quickly and you acquire his stuff, $10 million windfall. People are jealous, it's like winning the lottery. For something like that, that's something you have to be worried about. Ayin Hara is what the Gemara says over there. Also, acting as if something bad happened seems to cause that bad thing to happen. So, for example, the one who names after using somebody alive and uses the name, or somebody who's saying Kaddish even when he's not supposed to, it sounds like that could cause the bad thing to happen if you're already acting that way. Now, Lemaisa, what can be done to prevent and rid oneself of Ayin Hara? So the Gemara in Bracha says, if somebody's scared of Ayin Hara, take their right thumb and put it into their left fist, and take their left thumb and put it in their right fist, and then while holding your thumbs like this, you say, Ani Ploni bar Ploni Mizera de Yosef Ka'asna Deloy Sholta be Ayin Bisha Shenemer Ben Parat Yosef Ben Parat Ole Ayin. And that's what you say. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. And if he thinks that he may have caused Ayin Hara to somebody else, so then he goes and he looks at his left nostril. Now, how does that work? Why does saying those hocus pocus stuff, looking at your left nostril work, take away Ayin Hara? Well, I don't know how Ayin Hara really works in the first place, so it's not so surprising that I don't fully understand what exactly it is that takes away Ayin Hara. Lemaisa, the Gemara in Eruvin suggests that a way of getting rid of Ayin Hara is buy a Sefer Torah. You buy a Sefer Torah for the tzibur, and that could if somebody gets this windfall, he got some Nichsei Ager, go use some of that money to buy a Sefer Torah, and that will work to get rid of the Ayin Hara. I heard of a certain wealthy person who apparently he asked the Gedolim, I'm not sure who exactly, about building this massive house in America. And he was told, if you're building the house for the tzibur, you're going to make it's a place where, there could be a parlor meeting, there could be a fundraiser, it's a place for them to make a oinig, it's a place to have a minyanim there, it's a place for things of the tzibur to happen there, because they hate, go and build it. I heard also a Cal say, Lemaisa, if people are taking their money, they're giving a lot of tzedakah, they're using it for good things, people forgive that person. What's the idea? Because I think part of the Ayin Hara is people having this mindset, why did Hashem have to give him this house? Why does he deserve such a nice house? Oh, well, if he's using it for the tzipor, I'm not going to be asking, why does he deserve such a house? I'm happy that Hashem gave him that house. I'm happy that there's a beautiful place for the shul to have an oinig. I'm happy that there's a place for the organizations to have fundraisers. And I'm not going to have that kasha. Why do you have to get nichsei agar? I'm not going to say that. And I'm happy that the shul just got a brand new Sefer Torah. And I think there is such a concept. I think that, people see that you're doing good with their money, that you're happy you get it. Reb Chaim Pelagi says Torah protects against Ayin Hara. Reb Chatzkel says there's no Ayin Hara by Torah. However, there's seemingly a kasha on Reb Chatzkel. He's saying no Ayin Hara on Torah. We saw when it came to the Aliyahs, getting back-to-back Aliyahs, the two brothers can't get back-to-back Aliyahs. So it seems that there is a concept of Ayin Hara when it comes to Torah. I guess you answer, the Aliyas is getting covered from Torah. Getting covered from Torah, I guess there is Ayin Hara. But learning Torah, steiging in Torah, Zakt Reb Chatzkel, there's no Ayin Hara. Fine. The Arizal says tzitzis is a good thing to protect you from Ayin Hara. Okay. So the Maisa, how should one act when it comes to Ayin Hara? So the Maral quotes the Zohar and says, Ma'oid, Zar, Ma'ayin Hara. The Debetziner says, the halacha is like the Babas. If the Bobby, Grandma, Safta, if they say that, oh no, don't do that, it's such and such as Ayin Hara, we're chayshish for it. We follow them in the sugya. Interesting, very interesting. The Gemara discusses the concept. The Gemara discusses the concept of zugais, not to have peers. Al pikabol, you should have peers in certain things. And it says, man the kapit, man the loy kapit. If you're makbid upon it, it will have effect on you. If you're not makbid, it will not have effect on you. And same thing by dreams. Man the kapit, if you're really worried about dreams, it has effect. Man the loy kapit. And if you're not really worried about dreams, don't worry about it. It's not going to have effect. Rav Moshe Feinstein says regarding Ayin Hara, you certainly should be concerned about it. However, being more than basic concern, man the kapit, man the loy kapit. Even though there's no Gemara in it, but he extends it to Ayin Hara. You want to go crazy with it, it will have an effect on you. You don't want to go crazy with it, it will not have an effect on you. Now, the Meister Rav Moshe held it wasn't Ayin Hara, anything normal. You don't have to hide things that are normal. So, for example, a pregnant lady, a 25-year-old lady, married lady getting pregnant. You don't have to not tell anybody and keep it a secret. You don't have to be worried about Ayin Hara. It's perfectly normal for a 25-year-old lady to get pregnant. If a 48-year-old lady got pregnant, then already maybe there's Ayin Hara that you have to worry about. That's something that you should probably keep quiet, the 48-year-old lady. But the 25-year-old lady that gets pregnant, there's nothing to worry about. How many children do you have? 5. Ramesh would say there's nothing wrong with saying you have 5 children. What do you have to worry about? That's normal. That doesn't catch the eye of people. How many children do you have? 19. Yeah, that maybe you shouldn't tell people that you have 19 children, because that is something that causes Ayin Hara. What is this guy doing? Why does he have 19 children? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous he has 19 children. Either way, that could cause a Ayin Hara. Fine. Should one put their name on a building, or if they make a big donation, should it be public? Should they put their name on the building, or is it an issue of Ayin Hara? So the Rashba says you should put your name in the building, encourage other people to give. And the Maisa, the Ramah Paskins like this, you should put your name on the building, you should put your name out there, because it's going to encourage further giving. Fine. Do you have to pay for damage caused by Ayin Hara? Let's say I did Ayin Hara and got this guy's house to burn down based on my Ayin Hara. Do I have to pay for that? So the Aruch HaShulchan says you don't have to pay, because how are you ever going to prove that it was this guy's Ayin Hara that destroyed the field, destroyed the house? But Lu Yitzor, in theory, if you were able to prove that this is the guy that caused Ayin Hara, he would have to pay. Wow. And the stipler goes with this as well. Let me ask you guys a kasha. Isn't this grama? How could the Aruch Shulchan say you have to pay? It's grama. I didn't do it. The Ayin Hara did it. Well, if you understand, like the Rabbeinu B'chaya's pshat, that it's the heavenly judgment, then yeah, why do I have to pay? It's a heavenly judgment, 100%. But if you understand, like the Malbim's Mahalach, that it's, and the Rabbeinu Yoina, that there's a force, it's like my eyes are shooting out and destroying it, so yeah, I'm doing it. It's not grama, Zata Aruch Shulchan, it's garmi. If you know the difference, great. If not, now's not the time. But it's garmi, Zata Aruch Shulchan, and you would be chayiv. However, the Maisa, you can't prove it, and you're not chayiv. Ramesha Feinstein, however, says that no, we never find any hezek like this in the Torah, and there would be no hezek, you would for sure not be chayiv. Even if you could prove it, you would for sure not be chayiv. Now I'm just going to talk for a minute about, do we worry about goyish simanim of Ayin Hara? Now, you're not going to believe what happened when I was giving this shiur a little earlier. I was giving it upstairs, actually, but when I was giving you the shiur a little bit earlier, and I got up to this point, runs into the base medrash, guess what? A black cat, a completely black cat ran in the base medrash when I was just about when I was about to talk about, having goyish simanim, whether we care about goyish simanim or we don't. And I was going to say I don't care about goyish simanim. I'm still going to say I don't care about goyish simanim. There's a goyish siman that they say that black cat shows as a sign of bad luck, and this black cat ran in, listened to the shiur for 3-4 minutes, and then ran out of the base medrash. I think that is wild. I do not know what to make of that. I might have to ask my local mukubal. I'm not sure. But Lamaisa, we don't care about it. It's not a bad sign. It's not bad luck, the black cat. I'm not accepting it. I don't care. It's not a bad sign for us. It's not a Yiddish azach. But that is wild that actually happened. Okay. So, fine. So, there's what about, the Chidah says a ruda plant, I don't know what that is, takes away Ayin Hara. What about the red string that you can wear? People wear as a bracelet, they tie it around their wrist, the red string, Roita Bendel, I think they call it in Yiddish, or this red string. Is that a good thing to do? Is that a bad thing to do? So, there's no major makaris in our Messiah. There's a little bit I'm going to discuss in a second. There's some people that go crazy on this, how bad it is, because there's a Tosefta in Shabbos that says that having a red string around your finger is darche and moiri. Now, this is not the same exact thing, but it's a lot similar. It's a red string around your wrist or around your ankle, not around your finger, but very, very close. So some people go screaming and say, this is darche and moiri, it's usser. However, there's others that say, no, it's an ancient minhag. They have it. There's Sephardic communities that have been doing it for a long time, tying this red string around your wrist. The Debetziner even, he speaks about it in a positive way. He actually talks about using the red string and tying it around the stroller or around the crib, and he definitely seems to say you could do it. There's certain rebbes that give it out. L'maisa, how do we pass and how do we go? So l'maisa, if it's your minhag to wear the red string, gesundheit, hey, wear the red string. If it's not your minhag, then it's probably better not to pick it up and not put on the red string. Now, l'maisa, if somebody wants to do it, and for them it makes them feel spiritual, or it makes them, feel cool, or they like it, this is not the world's biggest problem. I know some people like screaming about it. I don't believe it's the world's biggest problem. There is somewhat of a Messiah about it. I don't advise it for those that don't have the Messiah, but it's not the worst thing in the world. What about a chamsa? A chamsa is that Sephardi thing that's in the shape of a hand. You could have a necklace, an ornament, hang it up here or there, whatever. Sometimes they even put a single eyeball in the middle. That seems kind of strange. Now, that's to ward off the Ayin Hara? Is that legit? Is that not legit? So, I've heard, apparently the historians claim, this is from the Arabs. It's from the Goyim. It's not a Yiddish Zach Makar. However, there are Jewish Sephardim who, from Sephardim, they've been doing this for a very long time with this chamsa. So l'maisa, I'll say once again, if it's your minhag, gesund hate. If it's not your minhag, I should say, if it's your minhag, tia bori. And if it's not your minhag, then probably it's not a good idea to pick this up. Next thing that a lot of people, everybody wants to know. What's up with this pouring lead thing? Now, if you don't know what I mean, there's a thing that people do to ward off the Ayin Hara. They take molten lead, right? They take metal lead, they melt it. Somebody puts a pot over your head with some water in it. Once again, they cover you so you don't get hurt. And they take like a ladleful or a spoonful or a ladleful of the lead. They pour it into the water. And that's meant to ward off the Ayin Hara. Some actually use it as a diagnosis method as well. That the lead turns into these funny shapes, and they look at the shapes and they're able to say you have this issue or you have that issue based on the shape that the lead goes into. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to say, huh? Really? That sounds like Avodah Zarah. What's up with that? And to make the plot thicken, it's not only women that do it, there are some men that do it, but most of the time it's like old ladies that are in charge of doing this thing, and it wards off the Ayin Hara. Is that a good thing, a bad thing, Yiddish, Zach, and not? What's the story with it? In Eretz Yisrael, it's very common. In Yerushalmi circles, it's very common. In certain Sephardi circles, it's common. And in other places, they look at that like that's crazy. So what's the deal? So I did a little research on it, and I could not find big sources there's no psukim, there's no mishnayos, there's no braysos, there's no gemaras, there's no rishonim, there's kamat no achronim. The earliest source that I could find discuss it was the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Tzemach Tzedek, I don't know how long he was, 200 years ago or something like that. So he's the earliest source that I found about it. Maybe even less than that, 200 years. And I didn't find anything besides that. So that I found to be very strange. Then I started researching, does anybody else do this? Are there other cultures? And I was very surprised to see, there's lots of other cultures that have been doing this for a very long time. The Greeks, the Romans, the Turks, they had something that seemed very similar. Nowadays when you do it, they tell you to read Shema Yisrael, different psukim. So the Turks, the old Turkish lady would go and pour the lead into the pot with water and tell you to recite certain verses of the Quran. That was like really similar, and that really scared me. And the Maisa, they're all talking about using this lead to ward off the evil eye. So I felt to be very strange. There's one of three things going on here. Either it's a Yiddish Azach, it's a Jewish thing, and they learned it from us. Or option two, it's a Goyish thing, and we somehow picked it up from them. Option number three is we both independently came up with it. The Jews came up with it and the Goyim came up with it. So let's talk about these three options just to understand. Now, to say that we both came up with this concept, that you pour molten lead to get rid of the evil eye, sounds very strange to me, because that's so random. And that we both came up with it. And furthermore, it's the old ladies that do it primarily. Once again, I'm not so surprised by an old Turkish lady. I don't know, maybe that was normal. In the frum world, it's usually not the ladies that are doing these types of things. You ever hear you go to the old Yerushalmi lady to shlug kaparas for you? That sounds very weird. So I don't know what to exactly make out of that. So maybe you'll say that they learned it from us. Now the problem with saying that they learned it from us, from my research, is I see them doing it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The Goyim were already doing it. And if we were doing it for 1,000 years, wouldn't you expect it to be written somewhere? And from the fact that it's not written anywhere, it sounds like we haven't been doing it for so long. So it sounds more like we learned it from them. So once again, I can't prove it definitively, but I'm just, trying to make my best guess from the history, that's what it seems like. Now, I'm not going to go right now and talk horribly about it for a couple of reasons. First reason is I don't want any of these people to turn me into a frog. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and say ribbit ribbit. You know what I'm saying? So that's number one where I'm not talking about against. Reason number two is the nice that there is definitely a minhag in this. And we're not even talking about modern people. We're talking about super stark Yerushalmi people, Sfardim with Messiahs, and they're into it. However, most of the people aren't so into it. So how do we view this? So if you understand that Ayin Hara is like the Rabbeinu B'chaya way, that you get Dinei Shemayim, because you're under the microscope. So it's very hard to explain how this pouring lead is going to take away Ayin Hara. And I have no idea how to explain how pouring lead takes away Ayin Hara. But if it's a mitzvah which is built into the teva of the world, so maybe just like it's built into the teva of the world, maybe this pouring lead thing could take off the Ayin Hara. I don't know. Can I explain it? No. So maybe, even if we learned it from the Goyim, that doesn't necessarily prove that it's not true. Maybe there is a Teva type concept where pouring blood is able to take away the Ayin Hara. Maybe there is such a concept. Lamaisa, most of the poskim felt that, it doesn't, if it's going to make somebody feel better, they could do it. They didn't really, really believe in it, but if it makes somebody feel better, let them go and do it. So that seems to be most common approach in the poskim. There are those that want to scream at it. It's nichush, it's aser, it's kishuv, and whatever. There are a minority that seem to be for it. The majority is in a meilavi and a myrid. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't help. It's a couple $100 or 200 shekel, depending on who you go to. And if it's psychologically, it helps you because into hate and go for it. I have no personal opinion whether this works or doesn't work or whatever. It's not my style and not my speed. It's not shiny. If it costs a couple $100 and now I can get rid of that Ayin Hara and close the deal, it's worth it. But overall, I'm not going to advise it because it doesn't seem like it's the accepted opinion. I tried to look at these people, tried to find, could you tell me where your Messiah is? Could you tell me the big Rabbanim that are for it? And it's very hard to find, sources that I can actually check up and prove. And therefore, I'm kind of skeptical about the whole idea. However, once again, with Tachi, I'm not saying it's wrong. And even if it's learned from the Goyim, which I'm assuming it is learned from the Goyim, that doesn't by definition disqualify it, because it's not by definition kishuf. Maybe there is some emistic explanation within the Ayin Hara that we just don't understand. So I'm going to leave that a little out there and up in the air. And with this, we end. Have an amazing, amazing week.